Hi, today we're going to Stafford Castle. Before we start, please like this video, and if you don't already, please subscribe, buttons just below. Thank you. We've arrived. It's quite a windy day, as you can probably tell by the hair. So the car park's near the visitor centre, so we'll go and have a look there first, and then we'll have a wander and see what we see. So we've got some medieval weapons here, axes and spears and the like, and if you ask at the desk they'll get them out for a donation. Suggested £2. They've got
per thing, or is that for?
I don't know. We've got helmets and armour over there that you can try on, and in here we've got some chainmail, and here, if you're feeling really brave, you can sit with your feet in the stocks.
I'm feeling brave.
So we've got John in the stocks. He's demonstrating them for us. He doesn't look very happy, even though we're not about to pelt him with anything. He doesn't look very happy. Quite comfortable. Well, we can leave John there then while we wander. Maybe not. Got the stocks here, but can't find a volunteer to go in. This is an interesting looking helmet. It almost looks like it's got Mr. Punch on the top of it. As in Punch and Judy, that is.
Oh wow, okay.
If you feel, it's almost like Mr. Punch on top of the helmet. At the back of the visitor centre, we've got a timeline. So we've got a drawing of a Norman castle with a Norman helmet and a Norman gateway, and a painting of a Norman castle, and this is an impression of how Stafford Castle might have looked in the late 11th century, soon after the initial construction work had been completed. At this time it was not certain that the new Norman lords would be able to maintain their control over the English, and so the motte and bailey castles were a fairly common sight. I wonder if this chap here is meant to be Ralph, the first Earl of Stafford, 1301 to 1372. And it says Ralph de Stafford was a military commander under King Edward III, having served with great distinction during the early campaigns of the 100 Years' Wars. Ralph was among the founder members of the Order of the Garter. He married twice, his second wife being Margaret Dudley, one of the co-heiresses of the Earl of Gloucester. Ralph could have claimed elevation to the earldom through marriage, but instead chose to make his name as a military commander. Following a series of victories over the French, Ralph was created Earl of Stafford in 1351. A model of Edmund Stafford. And it says Humphrey Stafford, 1402 to 1460, was a baby when his father Edmund, Earl of Stafford, was killed by rebels at the Battle of Shrewsbury. Created first Duke of Buckingham in 1444, Humphrey was only the second non-royal to be elevated to the dukedom in over 100 years. The first Duke was killed while leading the King's army at the Battle of Northampton in 1460 during the Wars of the Roses, his forces betrayed by the Greys. Humphrey was succeeded by his grandson Henry Stafford, who became the second Duke of Buckingham. On the death of Edward IV, Henry Stafford allied himself with Richard, Duke of Gloucester, uncle of the boy king Edward V. He was instrumental in seizing the two princes and has been implicated in their murder. The Duke was acting as Constable of the Tower at the time of their death. Henry then set about plotting Richard III's downfall, rising in open rebellion in favour of Henry Tudor. The rebellion failed and cost Henry Stafford his life, with his son and heir, Edward Stafford, narrowly escaping. Once crowned king, Henry VII restored the young Edward Stafford to his father's estates. Edward Stafford, 3rd Duke of Buckingham, was a close friend of the king, the two spending much of their formative years in each other's company. He was, however, falsely accused of plotting against Henry VIII and was executed in 1521. So we've come to the medieval herb garden outside, which is an attempt to recreate the kind of garden that the castle may have had in its medieval heyday, and is based on the evidence of typical medieval gardens taken from manuscripts and other documents.
So they did a lot of research.
They certainly did. So we squeeze through this gate. So this is the herb garden. Obviously, I guess because it's winter, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot going on herb-wise. So one's grown here would have been for skin and pain. One's grown in here were to keep evil spirits away. Ones in this one were dying, it says. I don't know if that's to stop you from dying or to help you die a bit quicker, I'm not sure.
That might be something about the visitor centre.
And then this one is for wounds. So I'm sure it looks a lot better in the summer. This one is for eyes, ears and throat.
Well, 2 of those I'm in trouble.
And this one here on the other side of it is for fever. I wonder if these herbs actually worked. This one, the label's fallen off, so we don't know. This one, culinary. That's more what we're used to today, isn't it?
Food.
Using them in food to add different flavours. And this one here is also culinary, so that's for food. This one's for nerves. So I suppose if you're of a nervous disposition, that was supposed to help. Labels fell off that one. This one's for wounds. This one here is for lung complaints. This one's for stomach disorders. Some of these look like they'd make you ill just taking them. Blood and circulation. And kidney and liver. But obviously there's not a lot going on there right now, seeing as it's winter, so let's hope that in medieval times they never needed these things in winter. So we're at the path on the other side by the visitor centre. So the herb garden's on one side and this path's on the other side of it. There's some picnic tables, so if you're here in the summer you can sit and have a picnic.
We didn't bring one today.
No, we didn't fancy one in the winter. Wasn't very appealing. It looks like we have this path through the woods to get to the castle. Now it did say on the website that you have to be mobile to do this. I guess you could get a wheelchair through, but it does look quite steep and quite muddy because of the time of year. There's our first glimpse of the castle at the top of the path. I'll stop a minute in an attempt to catch my breath because that hill is steep.
It's a bit of a climb.
Well, I guess these castles were built on a hill so they could see the enemies coming. And down here, behind the railings, would have been the moat. Perhaps that's what they meant by the moat. The moat. Probably was, actually. This is the Inner Bailey, or the remains of the Inner Bailey. Just looks like a grass mound now. And it says whatever structures lay on the summit of the motte, which I'm guessing was the moat, the space would have been confined and limited, which created the need for a bailey or defended enclosure to provide additional accommodation. Stafford Castle was unusual in that it had 2 large bailies and a defended settlement beyond. This position provides a good view over the Inner Bailey, 2.83 acres, where the domestic buildings of the castle were situated. The Inner Bailey was where the routine daily life of the castle took place. At its centre would have been an open courtyard where the well was located and where women and children would perhaps have congregated. Around it and backing onto I can't read that bit, but there would have been ranges of buildings including halls, chambers, a chapel, kitchens, a brewhouse, storehouses, granaries and stables, among others. So here we've got another view, and there's a sign here that says, in 1643, at the beginning of the Civil War, the castle was held for the king by the old lady Isabel Stafford. There occurred a minor skirmish in May when the garrison, according to the parliamentarian commander Colonel Brereton, shot some of our men and horses, which did enrage and provoke the rest to a fierce revenge. Almost all the dwelling houses and outhouses were burned to the ground. Maybe that was the moat. I don't know. I'm not very good with ruins. So we're at the top by the castle, where fortunately it's much flatter. But we really do have a fabulous view, which I guess is why it was built on the top of a hill, so they could see the enemy coming. Now this part of the castle definitely is not wheelchair accessible, hence we don't have George's today, so he's managing. So we have a really narrow doorway in, John. So if you keep going, and perhaps watch your head at the end. This is the castle keep. Now clearly the roof on it is modern because it's in ruins and it's got windows in there. But the walls are really quite thick. So if you feel, that's the start of the wall there, John. And if you keep going forward, it does narrow, but you keep going forward. I guess it narrows, so it's better for defence. Because I imagine back in Norman times there was always somebody trying to kill you. This would be where the fireplace was. Then there's a little doorway there that's locked, and there's some steps down and another doorway there. And here we've got another doorway. So again, it's quite narrow, and you've got 2 steps up, and then you've got another 6 steps to get to the door. Okay? So we've come up those steps, and we've got these little windows again here we can see through. And here's some information about the layout of the keep. So the basement had cellars, while one tower may have housed prisoners awaiting trial at the manorial court. The elevated ground floor included the kitchen, larder and buttery, while above were the great hall and the Lord's chambers. The towers were used as bedrooms and for storage, while the 5th tower in the middle of the south wall housed a small chapel. This must have been part of the tower that has a steep, twisty spiral staircase. Let's have a look. It only goes so far now because it's in ruins. But we've got this steep, twisty spiral staircase, which I shall brave so far, and then it would have kept going round and round and round up to the top of the tower. It doesn't now, it stops there. So just be careful because the steps are quite narrow and it does twist round quite sharply. So do be careful of your step. You can't really go any further because there's only a few steps, John, but it gives you an idea of what it was like. We go along this corridor. It's a bit out of the wind a bit here. And here you've got a tiny little slit of a window, and here you can feel the thickness of the brick. So if you lean forward, mind your head on the top of the thing. If you lean forward, that's how wide it is. It's quite wide.
It is real wide.
It's a little doorway, mind your head, John. Now we're back outside again. So there's another door there. It says the Gothic Revival Keep. This current castle was built between 1811 and 1821, and it reflects the style of the previous medieval castle and is an example of Gothic Revival architecture. So this is actually newer than the original castle. And we've got the remains of some more spiral steps there, which I guess was another tower that's come down. But it would cost a small fortune to try and restore this. Now I'm going to assume that this was the Great Hall, because here you've got the fireplace. So that's the remains of the fireplace. So that's quite a big fireplace, and a nice roaring fire all there. You'd have been lovely and warm. And then there's kind of remains of a corridor on the top there.
And I think you can actually go up some of it there.
Okay. Master of all I survey. Well, I would be if I was a man, I guess. Fabulous view. So it says here, in 1521, Edward Stafford, the 3rd Duke of Buckingham, was executed and the castle was forfeited to Henry VIII, who was told by his commissioners that the said castle is properly builded all uniform and of un facon, devised in length without an inner court, and at either end 2 tors, and on in the... I'm sorry, I can't read Old English. Not a understander of Old English, I'm afraid. And down there we've got where the moat would have been again, and the forest. First off, it's definitely not the best plan to come and visit the ruins of a medieval castle on the top of a hill on a cold, windy winter's day. We feel extremely windswept, don't we, John? Well, you're alright, you've got your hat on. Very sensible. But it's been interesting. I didn't even know that Stafford had a castle. It's been interesting. It would be possible to get up here with a wheelchair where the path's a bit steep, but to actually look round the castle and the ruins of the keep and so on, you wouldn't be able to because of the steps up, and some of the doorways are quite narrow. So you managed...
Accessibility only goes so far.
Well, didn't think about it back in those days, did they?
No.
But you managed it with care, didn't you, John?
Oh, sure, with care.
But if you've got any severe mobility problems, you're not going to make it up there. So George managed it with because there's a few strategically placed benches as well, so George was okay. We're heading back down, and hopefully at the bottom of the hill it's a bit less windy. If you've got this far, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, and if you don't already, please hit that subscribe button, and we shall see you next time. Bye.
Take care.